Welcome to the Being Curious Show. I'm Brian Mariani, founder of No Shift Own.
And I'm Kelly Wagner, publisher of Edge Magazine. Our show is about curiously connecting teachers and seekers on a wide range of topics in a safe space. Few topics will be off limits, and we have some amazing guests to share with you.
Our intention is that our conversations will spark your own curiosity to create a life that lights you up and inspires you to be kind, thoughtful, open-minded to yourself and others.
We are on AM 950, Sundays at 2 p.m. and all podcast platforms. So, Brian, what are you curious about today?
Okay, Kelly, here we go. We're going to do something a little quick here before we jump in with our amazing first guest. We just want to introduce, we're going to have Cassidy Ray. She's the magician behind Let's Get Freaking Weird. Can't wait for that. Who else do we have, Kelly?
And then we also have Mathew Dicks, who's an author of Some Days Today, and that's going to be a really fun one also. These two guests, let's just say we had to get a little creative to get them in studio. This is an honor to interview Cassidy and Mathew today, and yeah, it's good. And I'm already starting to channel, which is awesome, and seeing the pictures. So I think we're going to have a magical one, Mr. Brian.
We will. And before we get into our interview, what do we have cooking? I know you've had a lot of things going on at Edge Magazine and just expanding the community. And we're so grateful that people are showing up and listening and commenting. And if you're out there and you're enjoying our conversations, let us know. We love hearing from you.
Yeah.
So wherever you're listening, let us know.
Absolutely. And we have the Edge Magazine is in 300 drop spots throughout the Twin Cities area, but then also in greater Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, North South Dakota, Montana, and Oklahoma. So we're building. I don't know why people love their print copies. It's fantastic. Subscribe. I'm still hand mailing out to everybody because I felt energetically for the first year that I needed to touch every magazine and write a little note on everything. And yes, I sit there at my kitchen table and write little messages to all of our subscribers. When we bought the magazine, we had 3 subscribers left from the previous owner, and we're now almost at 300. So it's just this beautiful, organic, lovely thing. And who knew that print is magical. We did just send our last edition. This is one of the most recent ones, but that one's already at the printer. So it's actually being printed as we speak, and it's just magical and fun. So it is an honor. It is an honor to be here today. Okay, Miss Cassidy, we're going to kick this off. What are you curious about?
Hello. Hi. I am curious about fate and free will. Or should I say fate versus free will?
Tell us more.
That's one way to start. There we go.
Gotcha.
Oh, I know. Let's go 100 miles an hour right away.
Easy. No.
Let's go. Yeah. So tell us a little bit
what
about
does
yourself.
This person do even?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So you're curious about that, but let's backing up just a moment. Tell us about yourself, and then segue right into that curiosity.
Yeah, I am a professional psychic medium. I don't know how the professional sounds, but I'm a psychic medium, and that's what I do for my job, my profession. Nice. I do a lot of past life readings. That's kind of what my jam is right now. I work with people with fertility, a lot of grief, loved ones who passed over, love life, career, business, stocks. I kind of do it all. If you have something that you're wanting insight on, I talk to spirit and they hit me with it. So that's kind of my jam, and I keep it very real. I also talk to aliens, which seems to be a little weird for some people. It's quite normal for me.
Oh no, they're already here, so don't worry about it. Everything. Yeah, when I was dialing in, I was just like, oh, hello, friends. Oh, that's the day we're going to have today.
I got a lot over there.
Yeah, you do. Like, oh my gosh. Okay, so what does so you're a professional psychic medium, which, honor to you, and to be able to make that leap and to be able to do that. Tell us a little bit about coming into your gifts and abilities. And then I know you've been on an adventure for the last year. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So I was always aware that I was a medium. I knew I saw dead grandma in the corner, that was always a thing to me as a child. I wasn't really sure what the psychic part of it meant. I knew that I was very intuitive or empathic. And so when I started just in 2020, I kind of heard this voice in my head after I was working for a TV station in Beverly Hills. We lost all of our funding and they said, we can't pay you. And I was like, how do I pay rent? And I heard a voice in my head. I heard spirit and they said, tell people that you're a medium. So I bought a $6 tarot deck and I just made a little fun post on Instagram. I said, $5 for free, pay whatever you want. I'm just kind of dabbling in this. And that day I had like 60 signups. And 4 months later, it was my full-time career. And I just started like unlocking these gifts that I really never knew existed, which was really cool because I was always jealous of the people I'd see on TV, like Therese the Long Island medium or Tyler the Hollywood medium. I was like, how do they do it when they're like not sleeping? Because most of my gifts were my dreams. And then, yeah, so then when I met Kelly online, I was traveling around the US, just kind of going a little free spirit I am. And when I got back from that, I stayed in LA for 6 months, and now I am moved to La Paz, Mexico to do my next little adventure of life.
I loved watching your Instagram. So Cassidy reached out because I'm in the publishing world, and I was just looking at this beautiful spirit running around the country, and I just love how fearless you are, and I love that you just radiate this beautiful energy. And again, this fearlessness, and you enjoy human activities. So you're not just like meditating 3 hours a day, doing all that kind of stuff. You're out there causing trouble, getting in the water, enjoying time with friends. And I mean, it's check her out on Instagram. And then also TikTok. You're blowing it up on TikTok too, aren't you?
I'm loving it. TikTok's great. Yeah, it's been a really fun platform to follow and build on. And I'm at 23,000 followers, which is a big goal of mine since I had 500 followers. I've been like dreaming of the number 23. So next is 75, and then we're going 100K up. No stopping.
Okay. So for the community, what are some tips and tricks that you've done on TikTok? Because I mean, to get those kind of followers, by the way, the Edge magazine has 188 followers on our TikTok account, so we're like really, really proud of our 188. What if you were going to give some advice to anybody out there that is actually trying to grow their awareness on TikTok?
Yeah.
What would you share with them?
I was actually just writing down points 2 nights ago when I was laying in bed. I get all my TikTok ideas at like 2 a.m. Of course. I was gonna make a video actually soon on this, but I mean, consistency is gonna be your best friend. You can't post, once a week or twice a month and expect really anything. I mean, for me, if I'm having ideas, I'm cranking out 5 videos in a day easily. Like, that's the glory of TikTok. You don't have to sit there and make it beautiful and edit it like a YouTube video. You just live talk what you're doing, what you're thinking, and you put it out there, and it's instant. So being consistent. Also, like, as you can see, I have no problem behind the camera. It's really important to get comfortable just talking to people, or even just talking to a blank screen, and feeling important, feeling what you're saying actually has a meaning, even if you have 30 followers. Like, talk like you have 1 million. Who cares? I talk like I'm the I can't say that word.
I know what you're
like,
saying.
I got a big ego.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I think confidence is going to be a huge part in growing your platform. And then also not trying to like conform to what everybody else is doing, like finding what works for you. Like, there's 1 million other psychic mediums on TikTok. We know that. There's 1 million tarot readers. They're on your For You page all the time. But what I like about myself is I'm not like your average psychic or your average spiritual being. Like you said, I like the human activities. I'm very social. I'm very outgoing. I'm very blunt. I'm not like the hippy dippy who sits around and meditates all day. I'm like, I'll give it to you like it is. I'll give it to you straight. And that's that. So really, like, being authentic in who you are, showing that on screen is, I think, a really essential, because people can feel your authenticity just behind a screen. If you're scripted, that'll last 30 days. You're good. And then not long term. So
those are such good points, because I'm a bit of I spend time on TikTok every day, and I think what you just shared, especially for our audience, is really important for them to hear. That the most important thing is that they can actually just be themselves. I think a lot of people get caught up in like, oh, well, I should have been on Facebook or Instagram, but I don't understand the algorithm or I don't get the marketing part of it.
Yeah,
And TikTok has created a platform where you can literally press the plus button, speak your mind, and send it out. And
it's
don't,
instant.
it's instant. And don't worry about the mechanics. Don't worry about getting the hashtags right. And I think you
Yeah,
really summed it up. And the proof is in your pudding, right? Like you've
yeah.
gone from 0 to 23,000 followers. That's not saying anything. That's actually a pretty big deal. So kudos to you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Um, and give us some ideas around some of that content that comes to you at 2 a.m. You know, are you often trying to make people laugh? Are you serious? Are you balanced? Are you all over the place? What kind of stuff are you putting out
Yeah.
there?
Well, I mean, as Kelly probably understands, you get a lot of your psychic messages at like really random times, like you're driving or you're just in bed at like 2 a.m. trying to sleep, and then you get this like wonderful idea, and you're like, okay, so we're getting ready for Dream Realm, and the spirits come hit you with beautiful ideas, which is great. So I have a phone note app right next to me when I sleep. So if I have to roll over and break my sleep to write something down, I will, because if I get something, I know it's urgent. Wait, what was the second part of this question? Sorry.
Oh, just maybe an example of one of those aha moments that you then put right on TikTok. You know, was it some download that you got or something funny you thought of?
Yeah, I noticed so I like my humor. I do like to add my humor. I think my humor is a huge part of why people relate to me, because I'm not stingy, I guess you could say. So a lot of the things, like when I get messages from aliens, those are go out ASAP messages. Some things you can wait on. Some things, if I'm just going to talk about, hey, how to create better content and throw out something like that, that can wait. Or maybe a message of guidance or something. Some things can wait. Like alien messages need to be heard, or like current life events. I channel a lot of stuff not on purpose, from like the presidency. I've literally predicted the Queen's passing. All these things come to me, and so when you hear those things, you got to get them out, because there's a purpose of something of that higher power, or systems that are crumbling, that this is all you can really do. You can't have control over everything, but you can play your part. So some things you just feel are like supposed to go out ASAP.
I love the reptilian people in Hollywood kind of flow that you had going on a little bit, and that you were like, just, private message me, and you just, that was just funny, because we were also dialing in with that as well, and it's just like, oh, yep,
Yeah. It's so for real.
It's crazy. And then clones. I mean, there's like we could oh God, we could go off in some craziness today, but we're gonna kind of dial it in a little bit. But yeah, it's funny. There's the quote conspiracy theorists, or the people that are out there that are doing research. Sure, there's ones that are totally out in left field and right field and everywhere in between, but there's a lot of crazy stuff. And you know what's funny lately? I've been just seeing, in the movie A Few Good Men, how Jack Nicholson, when he was on the stage, was like, "You can't handle the truth." And like that's what I just keep getting, that you can't handle the truth. And I like want to raise my hand and just go, try me. Just try me. Just try me, because I think we can get it a lot more. But I think for a lot of people is that, and once you start peeling back the onion and you start realizing this isn't true and this is a lie and everything's connected, it's just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I always like to say, like, we are literally on a floating rock. Like, why wouldn't that be a possibility? Come on.
Oh my goodness.
That really brings things into a certain kind of focus.
Just zoom out. Like, look, like we're a planet in space. Of course there's aliens. Like,
yeah.
It's funny you're talking about aliens, because I literally watched Nope, the new Gordon Peele movie yesterday, and it took a really very, very, very unique approach on the whole alien thing, and I'd be curious your thoughts after you watch it.
I definitely, it's on my to-do list. Me and my boyfriend are planning to watch it, so I'll have to let you know when we do. But I'm so into all of, like, Jordan Peele movies and everything like that.
Well, because of our interview, TikTok's gonna put your stuff on my For You page, so just do a review after you watch it. Can't wait.
Perfect. I got you.
Oh, rock on. So, hey, if someone was going to have a session with you, because I know that you do, probably because you have clients from all over the world and you're down in Mexico, what does a session look like for you or with you?
Yeah. I had to stop for a while my audios because I was just getting so stacked up. But so because I have such a crazy schedule, I don't do like live Zoom calls or video chats like we're doing now because I have a schedule where I can't fit that many people in. So I do all audio recorded messages. So like I'm over here channeling on my end, doing everything live. You're hearing me ask spirit questions. I'm writing down on my Scribble notebook, and then I send you this link. You download it, you save it. It's usually about 30 minutes. You can listen to it whenever you want, which people love that. And then I send you a picture of my scribbles, which I'll kind of show you an example of like the one I channeled yesterday. But like, I mean, that's what the medium's notebook kind of looks like when you're doing a reading. That was a past life reading, so I was going all sorts of dimensions. And then I send you that, and either email or text, whatever. If they have an iPhone, it's easier to text. And then like I'm not someone who's like, okay, here's your reading, see ya. I'm like, hit me up after, like let's be friends. Like I'll validate anything, or you can validate things that I got, really accurate or on the point. Or sometimes things don't happen for 3 months, and you're like, oh shoot, Cassidy was like right on point, but in the moment maybe it didn't make that much sense. So I like to keep in contact with like all my people. Like I'd like to think we're friends. That's why I dropped out of my master's, because as a therapist, you can't be friends with your clients.
No, you can't.
You can't.
I love your notes. I've switched over to an iPad for my notes, but I use the pencil, and because I get to use all the colors. I'm telling you, and then I can send the notes right away, and you validated me. Like I've done a lot since being on the edge. I'm now also doing a lot of private sessions, and you're having this reading, you're getting this message, and it's very loud and clear. And I'll even go like, "Are you sure?" And then it comes back, and then you throw the thought bubble out. And I don't do pre-recorded. I mean, I'll do them in person or via Zoom.
Right.
And they kind of give you this blank look, and they're kind of like, that doesn't resonate at all. And then I've had in the last week 3 people reach out to me. Do you know what you told me 6 months ago? It just happened. And I'm like,
it just
yes, yes. Okay.
I think that's kind of a big part of why I kind of avoid that like live interaction too, because I'm like, these aren't going to make sense to you right now. And it's going to ruin my energy channel if you're looking at me with like a blank stare, like I'm stupid. And I'd rather just not see you. Like I like get full weirdo mode, and I listen to like really meditative music, and I just journal everything and have my audio going. And like, it works for me. It's how I get into a really deep channel.
I love it.
Because this distracts me looking at somebody else.
So how do you describe past life for people? Like, because not everybody is like, and then simultaneous lives. I mean, some people kind of go with that. How do you open that door for people up? Because that's kind of a big one, because our past lives are totally impacting this. I mean,
it's huge. I pretty much just talk about the experiences I have with clients on TikTok, and then people are like, "Whoa, that's crazy! I want one." And then they come to me for it. Like I'm not like really telling people like, "Hey, you should do this," but I think that people are starting to realize how much we're storing in our chakras, like the trauma that we store, both good and bad, but we do store a lot from past lives. Just one yesterday, this girl had 2 French past lives. And then she like messaged me back today, and she was like, I literally named both of my cats a French name, and I'm like obsessed with France. I'm like, we pick up a lot of things that are like comfort zones to us. Like imagine a comfort food. You have like a comfort past life. And one of them I did pick up on, where she was just like in the country of France as like 8-year-old boy and loved the life. And then some of them are like, you're in a war and you just got stabbed in the heart. So like some of them are a little more intense. But yeah, I think I believe that your soul clients come to you when it's time. People come to you when they're ready to hear their past lives. So there's not like me poaching people. It's more like, hey, I really think I need to hear this.
So what does it look like how does the front end of your session go? Like someone goes to your website, they book. Do you just get it all once it's booked, or do they like fill out some like notes, or do they leave you a voice note? Like, how does it work on the front end?
Yeah, I put a little detail section. So it's like name, email, detail section. And I tell them like, be as explicit as you want in this detail section. Because if someone's like, hey, I'm curious about my love life, and that's all they put, I'm like, that's great. But like, what's your current relationship status? Like, work with me here. Because if you want a general like baseline reading, I'll get you that. But if you're like, hey, this one person, this happened in this situation, and so now I'm curious about this, I'm like, okay, great. Now I have context here. Like, let's get into it. Like, we're not mind readers, we're psychics. So
Thank
you
you for
fill out
saying
detail
that.
section.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Because I don't want to, if someone's spending an hour with me, I don't want to spend the first 18 minutes trying to prove to you that I know what I'm talking about. Like, thank you.
I tell people this is not a guessing game.
No,
Mm-mm.
no.
No. We're trying to heal. End of story.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like with the onion. Like, show up with your knife, cut off the ends, get everything kind of ready to go, and then I'll start jumping in. I'm not going to sit there and go buy the onion, bring it home, and then take the skin off. And no, that's not. No.
Like, if someone's curious about career finances, I'm like, all right, well, give me what you're investing in. I'll tell you what feels good and what doesn't. Give me a state that you're trying to move to, and I'll tell you if that feels great. Like, that's how you get the most accurate readings, honestly. And then I ask also like what their self-care routine is, just to see how much they're doing for themselves. And then like I ask Spirit what kind of self-care they can add in. And it's usually very simple, easy things you can add into the routine. Like, I'm not going to ask you to go do something crazy. I'm like, hey, in the morning, you're going to put this sound on while you're brushing your teeth. Great.
Yeah.
So that's a really key factor that I think is also unique to you. You just said that you actually key into self-care habits or things that you would include in your reading to say, hey, you're someone that should probably stay away from milk, or you should drink more water. So those types of things come to you as well.
I get certain like herbs that are good for the body. If someone's dealing with like inflammation, I see visions of like what Oregon is kind of dealing with that. I'm like, okay, Spirit's telling me, like beet juice would be really great for that. And these aren't things I studied or learned in a book. These are just Spirit telling me things. And I just tell you, like my mom literally had an infection one time in her kidney, and I started seeing a vision of a bean. And I was like, what's the organ that looks like a bean? She's like, the kidney. I was like, you have an infection. And we did a Reiki session, all gone.
So just for anyone out there who really wants to believe how aligned everything is and how on point Cassidy is, look at what I have.
Beet juice.
Sitting within a foot of me right now.
Yeah.
So for anyone out there who's wondering how real what's happening right now, that's how real.
You can't make this
some inflammation.
up. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Okay,
That's
you guys.
funny I said beet.
No, it's not.
It's perfect.
Dialed in how you are. Okay. Oh my God, I just spoke like Yoda. It was fantastic. We
Dialed
are.
in you are.
We are wrapping our time up. Cassidy, she is. Oh my gosh, you're just dialed in. I don't want to just say that you're limited with Reiki. You're limited with psychic mediumship. You're with tarot and past life. I mean, if you're curious at all, you guys, there's a reason why she's here. There's a reason she's on our show. As the person that I am, knowing what I know, inviting her with Brian. Cassidy, how do people find you? Because I just want people to, with their curiosity, just book with you.
Yeah, for sure. Everything is under Let's Get Friggin' Weird, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, everything. And then my
Would you
website
spell
is Let's
that?
Get Friggin'.
Spell it, because it's spelled a little differently than it sounds.
Yeah. Beware of scammers. I'll never DM you. I don't search for work. Okay. LETSGETFRIGGINWEIRD.com is the website.
Perfect. And those are your handles, and it's lovely. You guys.
Everything. Let's get friggin' weird.
Awesome. Cassidy, you rock, lady. This has just been an awesome adventure, and I'd love to have you back, and I know so would Brian and his beet juice.
For sure.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. And thank you. Here's to our next segment. Cassidy, rock on, lady. We need ya.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Kelly, how excited are you for our second guest today?
I totally am.
The energy is really high right now. We're with Mathew Dicks. I was going to say we're with author Mathew Dicks, but my gosh, he is so much more than that. And we want to dive right in. We want to get to know you. We want our audience to get to know you, of course. And we love asking this question. So what happened in your life, or what were some of those experiences early on that had you start to get curious around actually becoming an author and just being the accomplished human that you are today? Walk us through that journey a bit.
Sure. I guess the thing that sort of got me going the most in terms of at least my journey as an author and really sort of like deciding I could make things in the world, it was a moment in 12th grade. I was in an English class and I was sort of not very invested in school because I was going to get kicked out of my house after I graduated. So I didn't have a future. I didn't have a vision of college and things like that. I was really thinking about where am I going to live in June. And I encountered this teacher and he introduced me to satire. And, whenever I liked something, I would become invested in it. And I suddenly realized with satire, I can sort of be sarcastic and funny and insulting all in writing. And sort of writing hadn't been something that occurred to me until I discovered it could be a vehicle for the voice that I actually possess. And so I wrote something that I thought was the greatest thing ever written in America. And he gave me a B- on it. He told me it was too obvious, not satire. It's actually still in the file cabinet, just to my right. I still have that assignment. And I argued with him. I said it was great. And I said he was a fool. And he said, read it to the class. And if they agree with me that it's too obvious, your B- becomes a C-. But if they agree with you that it's actually satire, your B- becomes an A-. And, I was 17 and I was willing to take any challenge. So I stood in front of the class and read something that I wrote for the first time in my life to an audience, and they began laughing almost instantaneously. And by the time I was done, Mr. Campo, that was his name, he said, raise your hand if you think that was satire. And every hand, including Mr. Campo's, went up. He said, it reads flat on the page, but you brought it to life in a way I did not expect. And so he grudgingly crossed out that B- and made it an A-. And that was the moment when I thought, I have no future. My parents are throwing me out of the house. I can never become anything that I want to be, but I just found something that impacted the world in a way I never expected. And so the next Monday, I opened my first business. I started selling term papers. I wrote them for my classmates and then sold them to them so that they didn't have to do the assignments. And with the money I made, I bought my first car. And that sort of launched my career in terms of not only writing, but just the idea that my voice, the things inside me can become manifested in the world in a significant way and maybe change my future. And ultimately, that is what happened for me.
Wow. I mean, so cool. Matt, what I got so clearly when you just shared that story, you said something really critical that I want the audience to key in on. You said, I wasn't going to be able to be what I wanted to be, but you just became who you are.
Yeah.
You had this experience where that's what I got from
yeah.
what you shared in that story.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, my dream as a kid was to become a teacher because I had so little understanding of the world. Like as a 17-year-old kid in 1989, if you would ask me what jobs exist in the world, I would have said firefighter, police officer, teacher, doctor. Is there anything else? Now, all my friends knew a lot more about the world, but I just didn't because of the way I was raised. And, I lived in a small town and my parents just weren't supporting me in the way I needed to. And so I said, I want to be a teacher. And, to this day, I'm an elementary school teacher now for 24 years, and I became the writer I wanted to be. But so much of what happened to me took place in that classroom when someone pointed out to me that really what it was hope. I found a little bit of hope that there could be a future for me that was better than the future that I could only envision at that time.
Are you like one of the most popular teachers in the school?
I am either the most popular teacher or the least popular teacher, depending on who you speak to. So, and on any given day, I might be the most popular teacher with my students, or they may really despise me. So it just depends. I think the thing that I really have going for me as a teacher is that I was not a kid who loved school. I was not a kid who behaved well at all. I was a kid who tried to cheat every rule I could and cut every corner I could. And so as a teacher, I understand those kids. And so often my colleagues, to their credit, were people who went through school highly effective as students and loving school and went to college and did a great job. And so when they come to school as a teacher, they're excellent at what they do, but they ask things to me like, I don't understand why everyone runs down the hall. Why does that kid run down the hall every day? And I say, have you ever run down the hall? Because it's amazing. Like to fly by those doors and to see the linoleum pass. I've often said, and this is true, if I was allowed to, I would absolutely throw a chair through the window in my classroom because that would be a spectacular thing to watch. And I know that's inside my students. They want to do things like that. And so because I understand sort of those impulses, I think I've been successful as a teacher. Whereas I think some of my colleagues, they're outstanding, but I think it takes them a little bit longer to understand why that kid won't do what I told them to do. And I just want to say, because I don't want to do what you tell me to do, or what anybody ever tells me I'm supposed to do. So I see them clearly in a way that I think a lot of people don't initially.
My daughter would love you as a teacher. She's an 11-year-old sixth grader, and we're in middle school for the first time. Well, I would hope that she's in it for the first time. And we're just watching her navigate the waters and trying to go back and see myself as a sixth grader. And when she comes home with certain experiences, I feel like I have to mom, but then another part of me is the little sixth grade girl inside going like, you go, Brinley, it's all good. Second week of school in middle school, a little boy was, let's just say, egging her on in science class. And she slapped him. Just straight up slapped him.
Yep.
And what do you do? Well, she's a girl. I mean, in the environment of the world right now, I'm just like everything. And part of me was like, good for you. But then another part of me is like, nope, you got to pay the piper. And next time you don't get caught and try to talk with them. And we got involved with the dean. And I mean, we had all these different things happening, and it was just crazy. But my little sixth grade girl in me was like, you got him. But then the adult in me was like, okay, well, you have to play the rules. You have to play the game. And luckily, the dean was kind. The teacher in the restricted area that she had was kind. And she's grown from it. And now the little boy is actually trying to communicate with her again.
Yeah.
How's that for a little story? Well,
Right.
Okay. Matthew is the author of Someday is Today. I don't know if we said that at the top of the segment, so I just wanted to make sure. 22 simple, actionable ways to propel your creative life. Now, I read this book. I loved it. I actually stalked him to get you here today. So I'm really, really blessed.
Oh,
and yeah,
thank you.
I loved it. It was just every day I would just go in and read a little chunk. And it was interesting. I was envisioning what your voice would be like. And it's exactly the way I envisioned it. And I love your energy, and I love how you are. And I'm like, yep, that's exactly who wrote this book.
Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Let's talk about sleep. You said that you need to sleep sacredly, and I have been struggling with sleeping lately. But after reading your topic, like what you said about sleep, the room's cold, there's no TV on beforehand, our bedroom is meant for bedroom, and I want to know more about what brought you there and the importance of sleeping sacredly.
Well, I hate sleeping. It's, this act of sort of going unconscious and just inviting someone to come along and kill you, and it's really useless when it comes to like a productivity. I want to get things done. So I hate going to bed every night. My wife loves getting into bed, putting her head on the pillow. It's her favorite part of the day sometimes. But for me, it's aching. I just can't believe I have to lay here for a certain amount of time so that my brain can do whatever it needs to do. So early on, what I sort of figured out was, if I can sleep well, which is to say I can fall asleep quickly, which most people cannot do, and then I can stay asleep throughout the night so I'm not interrupting any REM cycle, and my brain is actually getting the work done that it needs to get done, and then I can wake up naturally rather than in a startled state, which most people wake up to, which is if you use an alarm or you require an alarm every day, you're basically being startled awake. It's like a lion is chewing on your leg and suddenly you wake up. And that's a terrible way to sort of start your day. And so in an effort to preserve time, to shorten the amount of sleep that I needed or required to spend time in bed, let's say, I want to short the amount of time that I had to spend in bed, I figured out ways to sleep sacredly in a way that experts tell you to do, and I actually followed. So there's no television in the bedroom. I've never watched television in my bed for the last 3 decades. That would be a ridiculous thing to do. I go to bed at about the same time every night, and I wake up at about the same time every day. This morning, I woke up, my eyes opened at 4:45, which is about the time I wake up. My alarm is always set for 5:15 in case something crazy happens and I sleep through it, sleep through till after 5. But it almost never goes off because at some point between 4:30 and 5, my body releases chemicals that allows me to wake in a really wonderful state of, and then I stayed in bed for an extra minute because the cats were on me. And when you pet animals, it's great for your mental health. That's an actual scientific thing that when you take care of animals, you improve your mental health. So I pet my cats, and then I got out of bed and I started my day great. So if you just do some simple things like that, if you get white noise so that you create an additional trigger for your brain, I hear white noise, therefore it's time to go to sleep. I'm in bed, and the only thing I ever do in bed is sleep, therefore it's time to go to sleep. So that means I don't read in bed, even though I love to read books. I read in a chair next to the bed, I read on the couch. If you just treat your sleep well, what will happen over time, and what I've discovered with people is they'll say things to me like, I need 8 hours of sleep, Matt. And I'll say, well, how long does it take you to go to sleep? Well, I toss and turn for the first 30 minutes. I say, okay, so you really need 7.5 hours of sleep, right? And when the alarm goes off, how long do you sort of lounge in bed before you get out of bed? And they're like, well, maybe 20 minutes. And I'm like, so you're saying 30. So that's another 30 minutes on the back end. And how many times do you wake up in the middle of the night? And all of those things start to pile up. And pretty soon people realize, maybe I don't need 8 hours. Maybe what I'm saying is I spend 8 hours in bed, but I'm actually only sleeping 7. And so I only need 7 hours of sleep if I can just get myself to sleep quickly and get through the night without ever waking up. So that's what I try to do, because every hour you can get back, or every minute you can get back, over time, exponentially, it's enormous. Just do the math. So even if you can shave 10 minutes off your sleep every night, that will pay off enormously if you use those 10 minutes wisely.
What a great topic to dive in on, Matt. I think sleep is one of those universal things that everyone's constantly trying to solve. People are going to experts and they're doing medication, and they're literally trying everything to try to solve sleep. And you just laid it out in such a
efficient way,
like an eatable way. It was just right there. And I think that's really what's special and valuable about your book, is that it's always that way because you're a teacher and because you have empathy for what it means to be the student. And so the way that you describe things is ultimately practical because you're living it. And I know you have a number of these examples in your book of really how you maximize efficiency throughout your day. And I'd love for everyone to get it in your words, live with us today. What are some of those other ways that you create efficiency?
Well, I'll tell you one thing about sleep, just to close that out. I just did parent-teacher conferences, and I always ask the kids, what has helped you the most this year in front of their parents? And one of my students this year said, I'm sleeping better than I ever have slept before. And the parents didn't know that I had taught them how to sleep, which is something I always teach kids early in the year. And the parents said, what do you mean you sleep better? And she said, Mr. Dicks went through a lesson with us on how to sleep, and I started doing his strategies. And now I go to sleep quickly, and I don't have to wake up with an alarm anymore, and I sleep through the night. And the parents said, what are your strategies? Because we need them too. So a kid identified the most important thing I had taught her for the entire school year was how to sleep. And although that doesn't sound ideal from a person who teaches math, reading, writing, social studies, science, and all those things, I think it's actually truly correct. Like if I help her sleep better for the rest of her life, long division can come at another time, or never, because we don't actually do that anymore. So sleep is important. But, basically what I do is I just take a look at my day and I make sure that I don't dither away the minutes, which I think is what happens to so many people. Actually, today is a perfect example, right? I was just telling you before we started this call that I made my children dinner and I looked at the clock and I said, okay, it's 6:08. I need to be in the office at 6:12 so I can be on the call at 6:15. I have 4 minutes. Most people at that point take out their phone and they look at their phone, which will make them feel worse in doing so. You'll always feel worse when you look at your phone because you're going to look at Instagram and realize that you're not as pretty as your friend, or you're going to look at Facebook and realize you're not in Aruba like your friend is. And instead I turned to my son and I said, I need to take a shower. I played a football game against my students today. I'm very sweaty and I'm going to be on camera. I'm going to go take a very fast shower. It was a 4-minute shower. I managed to accomplish it. I did it by moving quickly, by having a routine in place, by being organized in my closet, by knowing exactly what I needed to do and how to do it and the fastest way to do it. And rather than spending half an hour later tonight leisurely taking a shower that ultimately will mean nothing to me, I managed to squeeze it in 4 minutes. And I think most people find themselves throughout the day with these little increments of time. A meeting hasn't started yet. You're waiting for a Zoom call to start. You're sitting outside your kid's ballet class and you're waiting for them to show up. And what are we doing in those little bits of time that I think are so precious, most of the time we're staring at a phone and making ourselves feel bad about ourselves and the world around us. And I just choose to maximize those minutes. So I tell people, make a list of all the things that you can accomplish in 10 minutes. Have that list ready for you. Like, what are all the things I can actually do in 10 minutes that mean something to me? And when you make that list, you discover it's enormous. There's a million things you can do in 10 minutes. So stop wasting your 10 minutes on nothing, or even worse than nothing. Start using your 10 minutes meaningfully, and suddenly you'll find yourself with more time in your day than most people have.
Well, that actually teed me up to tell me your thoughts about social media.
Well, I use social media for sure. Now, honestly, I have a couple people who do a lot of my social media for me, so that is very convenient and, good for me that I have that capability. But for me, social media is something I use. I use Twitter, for example, as a news source. It is very carefully curated, and when I open Twitter, there's a meaningful purpose. I want to find out what is going on in the world right now. I sort of want to know the political situation. I want to check on my sports teams, and I want to check on the few sort of writers and storytellers and see what they're thinking. And so I often use Twitter when I'm waiting in a line at a pharmacy, when I'm waiting in a drive-through line to pick up my Egg McMuffin in the morning, when I am standing outside my school watching the two children who were lined up waiting to come inside. I can handle watching two kids and read a Twitter feed at the same time. So I'm sort of not dedicating time in my day to do it. I'm, again, filling those little bits of time, but I'm not doom scrolling through nonsense. So that's Twitter for me. And Facebook is a place where I visit. I put something on Facebook and then I walk away. So my daughter recently told me, hey, did you know that your cousin is pregnant? And I said, no, I didn't. She didn't tell me. And my daughter said, well, I saw it on mommy's Facebook page. And I said, well, I don't look at Facebook. I just put stuff out there and then I walk away from it so that people can see my stuff, but I don't need to see their stuff. I just don't want to see their stuff because I have more productive uses for my time. So I'm not opposed to social media, but I think you have to be strategic about it because otherwise you just end up in a spiral where you're just using it to fill time and hopefully to feel better about yourself, which is something that will never really happen.
Well, and it's such a powerful, it's a really empowering concept that you're delivering for people. And this is why I found your book so interesting. One of my best friends and I, we just kind of set some challenges, physical challenges for ourselves earlier in the year. And one of the challenges that we were looking at was, well, we work a lot. We're very motivated. We want to accomplish a lot in our life. And we get to the end of our day and it's like, okay, the working out's not happening. And sometimes it's hard to do in the morning. But guess what? We're in meetings all day long. And there are these little breaks. Now, you imagine those 5-minute breaks. Most people could do 10 push-ups in 5 minutes. Now, if you do that day after day after day, you might be able to get 50 push-ups done in 5 minutes. And then if you do that 5 times throughout your day, now you're looking at 250, 200 push-ups, 500 push-ups a day. And so I love this concept that you bring together because what's important to you? Is it physical health? Is it reading more? Imagine the knowledge you would put in play in your own experience by picking up that book for 5 minutes in between meetings. Like you're saying, it's when you were talking about sleep. What can I do to create the edge when it comes to sleeping? And I really invite people to take this book, not just for a one-time read, but really to go through it over and over because there's so much gold. And speaking of gold, you have this chapter, The Eagle and the Mouse. And I know I'd love for you to share more about that chapter with everyone.
Sure. Well, it came up because my wife is a teacher and I am a teacher. And there was an evening when we were both working on report cards. And she spent about an hour and a half on a report card. And in the hour and a half that I spent, I completed all my report cards. And I was also playing online poker at the time when it was legal. And I was sort of listening to an audiobook. I was doing all of these things. And it made her nuts. Yeah. And it just killed her. So she didn't say anything to me. She went into work the next day and told our principal. She said, I don't know what I'm going to do with Matt because I can't sit next to him and watch him do this. He makes me feel terrible about what I'm getting done. And he said, Matt is the eagle and you are the mouse, which is to say, I fly above and I understand the landscape. And most importantly, I understand what is important. So I know when I'm doing a report card, all I really need to do on a report card is tell parents I love their kid, explain how I can see and know their kid, and tell them that I think their kid can still be doing better. And if I tell the parents those three things, nothing else is really relevant. I will have to check off all the boxes, but I will not spend a lot of time on the boxes. If I'm trying to decide whether something's going to be a check or a check plus, it's always a gut call on me. It's just the gut and I move on, because ultimately that singular check or check plus will never make a difference anywhere in the universe whatsoever. My wife, on the other hand, is a mouse, which means she's extremely detail-oriented. So there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, there are times when I am the mouse. When I'm writing my novels, I am detail-oriented. I am the mouse. That is appropriate at that time. But my wife sort of is detail-oriented about everything. And it's a challenge sometimes because, we will buy a piece of furniture that doesn't quite fit the room, and I will never know that it doesn't fit the room because I am not detail-oriented, where she will notice for the rest of her life the way it doesn't fit, and it will bother her forever. So with creative people, the trick is, if you're a person making something, whether you're growing a garden in the backyard or macrameing, is that a word? Macrameing, is that a thing?
I think so.
Okay, macrameing, or writing a book, whatever you're doing, if you're a creative person trying to make something, a business, so often those people tend to be mice, meaning they obsess over the details of every little thing. And what happens is they get lost in those weeds, right? And as my wife says, the eagle eats the mouse. That is the problem with that story, is I am the eagle, she's the mouse. Eventually I'm going to eat her. So what creative people need to do is to learn the moments when they have to get above the fray. They have to learn that there are times when we have to look at the big picture and say to ourselves, that is not actually important. I can't help but feel it's important, but I have to tell myself it is not, because so much of life is not important. And all you have to do is ask yourself, will this matter tomorrow? Will this matter next week? It's a question I ask myself all the time. There was a time right after the pandemic was sort of coming to an end. We had a freezer in the basement filled with meat, like probably $500 worth of meat. And one day my daughter went downstairs, opened the freezer, took out a popsicle, and didn't close the door. So 3 days later, my wife made it downstairs again and discovered $500 worth of meat had all gone bad, the most expensive popsicle there ever was. Yeah. And she was upset about it. She was like, this is terrible. And I said to her, listen, in a week, this is going to be something we laugh about. So let's let that week be now. Let's not cause ourselves any consternation over something that will ultimately mean nothing to us. And to my wife's credit, she said, it's a great idea. Let's just laugh about it now instead of waiting a week to laugh about it, because an improved spirit, an improved mood, not being upset about something, all those things are valuable. All I was the eagle in that situation. I flew above it and said, it's not actually important in the grand scheme of things, so let's put it aside. We have to do more of those things so that we can get the important things done in our lives.
Matt, this is awesome. You guys, get the book. Just do it. Just do it. Some days today. 22 simple, actionable ways to propel your creative life. MathewDicks.com. Man, I really appreciate you. I love this book, and thanks for joining us on the Being Curious Show.